Welcome to the PLMA Live monthly interview. I'm your host, Tim Simmons. We all know that retailing is changing, but it's not easy to figure out exactly where it's going. Our guest today has been involved in retail design and branding for more than 25 years and has some definite opinions about the future of retailing. He's Howard Saunders, who heads his own consulting company, 22nd and 5th. Howard, welcome to PLMA Live. If you were to take us to one store that you think exemplifies the future of retailing, where would you take us?
I'd take you to Italy, and I'd say that they have stumbled upon a success. They're not quite sure how they did it, but they've brought together all these experts, the artisan pizza and cheese and fish and meat, and they've brought that all into a space, at the center of which is a community space where people hang out and drink wine and try cheeses and feel like they're really at the center of the universe. So this whole community aspect is what really interests me, because I think it's taken online retail a sense to prove to us what retail's really for, and that is actually for us to get out and try things and be treated with respect and sit at the center of the universe and watch the world go by a little bit.
This trend toward community retailing sounds great, but I can just imagine the chief financial officer coming into a meeting and saying, how are we going to make any money at this?
Well, I'd say we've given too much power to the chief financial officers, because I always say when someone criticizes me for stuff like that and I'm standing in front of a big audience, I say, well, great, come up and make the opposite opinion, make the other point. Stand up here and tell me that actually community is less of a problem, that retail should start focusing much more on producing more product, getting more product out there, making our floors, shop floors denser and denser with more and more product, make it more accessible. Well, that's going to be a very difficult argument to follow through.
So the old rules of retailing won't apply anymore.
I say stores are dead. Clubs are where you want to be. You want to think of your store, your brand, actually as a club. You have members and you're hosting a club. What can you do for those people when they're in that space? When they're not in that space, what do you do? How do you speak to them? And that's, of course, opens up the whole social media thing. You've got to think of your brand much more of a club than a store. And I think historically we shut the doors of the store and that was it, day over. Not the case anymore, as well we know.
It sounds like you think this is a pretty fundamental change that won't be going away anytime soon.
No, it isn't. I think we've learned the lesson. I think we kind of got overexcited about having access to stuff. We, the planet, learnt from your supermarket model, which was brilliant. Started by Piggly Wiggly and whatever it was. And it was genius, wasn't it? You ran up and down the aisles as quickly as possible, grabbing stuff. You did all the service yourself, and you ran home, and that made it a very efficient way of accessing stuff. Well, now online can do that. So if we think, and that's not going to go away, well, I don't think so. I don't think that's a blip. So on the basis you can access stuff online, then surely stores have got to give us more than just access to product. And it's a very simple equation.
So even though they seem opposed to each other, online and community retailing are really linked together.
Absolutely. And I think it's kind of beautiful that the two work hand in hand. And if you see online, if you're a retailer with traditional stores and you see online as a threat, you're just misunderstanding it. You should be a brand that embraces all of that and talks to your customers at every possible level. That includes social media, obviously, which is enormous. We keep touching on it. But all of that must be your brand experience.
Now, Howard, let's talk about how a private label supplier might succeed in this new world of retailing. Let's say the supplier makes something that's perceived to be a commodity. Perhaps it's olives.
Well, if you have no control over how your product's sold or how it's packaged, I mean, nothing. Make good olives. I would say go out, make sure they're really good olives. I mean, if that's the only control filter you have. But other than that, I'd say you've got to explain to us why your olives are the best. We've got this weird conversation about olives here, but it's useful. You've got to explain why they're the and not a olives. Surely you've got to tell us what's special about them, why they're the best.
Any other tips on how to make a product be more than just a commodity?
Yeah, I come across this a lot with some of my clients, some of the people I advise in various ways over the years, that they don't look hard enough at what they do, and they kind of assume this. Take this take this with a pinch of salt, but it's kind of, they will come to you with their product and say, how can we promote this? And we want to be kind of like them and only better. And they don't actually stop and say, well, hang on, what do we really do here? How do we actually produce this? And so often you can talk to a client and ask a few questions and you realize there's a little nuggets of goodness in there that they've not even thought about. Things that they do naturally that they've not thought about promoting or telling customers about. So I would say always look internally, look at what you do, look at how you're communicating it, if at all, and enhance those. If you are producing those olives, why? Where are they from? How are they made? How do you pick them? How do you select them? At what time of year do you select? I know we're focused on olives again, but it's interesting how ordinary little products have stories, and the more story you can bring to the front, I think customers are ready for that. And I would say that more and more we're looking for that. We're researching online everything before we buy anything anyway. But even if we don't, even if the back of your package has this story about where and how they're produced on the foothills of wherever and the weather is this and that, even if they don't read it, we absorb it by osmosis because there's something there that's passionate. There's a story there that's true, and then let's make it true. And that somehow, even as we glance across it, we realize we have in our hands here a product that's got something to say, that's maybe got a bit of a backstory, and that's almost enough. That can be enough reassurance. But then obviously if you want to delve further, there is real truth there. That's what I would say.
The marketing approach for this new world of retailing seems to be radically different from what's worked in the past.
Advertising shifted. The idea that we all sit in front of that little box and watch the same adverts telling us the same stuff, the same products are amazing, that we should go out, and we kind of obeyed, didn't we? We sort of went out and that was the soap powder we used because those are the ones being promoted, and we heard the stories. It's not the world we live in now. So what's taken over from that? Well, social media has. And I'm much more likely to listen to how good your olives are by listening to what you have to say about the products you've used than I am to watch a big fancy ad with lots of special effects that tell me. I think we want things that are much more authentic now. We don't believe all that marketing hype now. We're more sophisticated. We've had 50 years of it. We're in a different generation. We're more cynical. We're more sophisticated in the real sense of the word. We're looking for authenticity, whatever that means, and I know there's a big debate about that. But we're looking for products that not A.
We've been talking about how to succeed in this new world. But what's the biggest mistake we need to avoid?
I would say don't chase technology. And I would say look very hard at what you're doing and think about what it means and how good you are at it. And invest in things like hospitality, dare I say, because I talk about this community thing. Well, then how do you greet your staff if you have stores? How do you do all that? How do you actually focus on what the customer wants and helping her or him rather than chasing iPads? Some of the worst stuff I've seen is where you'll get restaurants suddenly bringing in iPads to order from because it's kind of more efficient, and it absolutely strips the heart of a place out. There's no it's just about ordering, and it forgets the reason why you're there in the first place, which is to connect and feel like you're at the center of the universe again. So I would say don't chase technology and look very hard at how you do what you're doing currently.
So I guess you're not in favor of having robots in stores.
They're going to be expensive though. But yeah, that's all going to happen. All the jobs that we don't want will be taken away, and either technology will come in, or robots will stack the shelves, or whatever. But the jobs we do want, the jobs that humans are good at actually, which is connecting and advising and being intuitive and clever and receptive, and those are the things. And greeting people nicely and making them feel warm. That's where our place will be enhanced, and I think as humans, as retailers, as brands, that's going to become much clearer, I think. So you're going to take away the stuff that's sort of automated, and we can actually focus on what we're good at. So ironically, it's sort of the rise of technology that's going to show us what's good about being human, in the same way as the rise of online shows us what's good about being offline.
Well, it's good to hear there will be a role for us humans in this new world of retailing. Howard, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching this edition of PLMA Live, and join us next year for another exclusive interview.